What's going on, Barefoot crew? Back with yet another Barefoot shoe review. My name is Barefoot Will, and today we're going to be reviewing the Hallux Active from Wyde Footwear. Before we jump into the rest of the review, I just want to give a big thank you to Melker from Wyde Footwear for sending these out and for sending out the pair of Novas that I reviewed in the previous review. Just want to remind you that for any Wyde shoe at checkout, you can use my code BarefootWill, no spaces, and that's going to be good for a 10% discount on anything and everything that Wyde offers on their site. All right, now for the review. First thing, as always, we're going to talk about the aesthetic appeal of this shoe. I really love the aesthetics of this shoe. But let's address the elephant in the room, and that's going to be the toe box. This shoe is designed around natural foot function. So you're going to have a natural foot function shape to the shoe. When it shows up to your door, it's going to be shaped like a natural foot. So visually, this looks different and this looks abnormal to the trained human eye that most people have in society. So wearing these out in public, you will more than likely get a few looks, maybe a few questions. Me personally, I don't care. I actually kind of like the differentiation that the shoe provides from an aesthetic appeal because of the toe box. I'm in a position, obviously, of encouraging people to ask questions about my shoes, about foot health. And to me, this is a good enough looking shoe, but a different enough looking shoe to where it is going to raise some question. That's my favorite part about it. Now, aside from the toe box aesthetics, I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park. Something I do want to bring into this video is the Hallux 1.0. So this is their debut shoe. This is the very first shoe that Wyde introduced to the market. And what I have here, what we're reviewing today, is basically the second iteration to this. I noticed that they decided not to go with the labeling of the 2.0. They went with the Hallux Active, which I don't know if that is a little bit change in marketing just to get away from the original shoe, what the idea behind that. I haven't actually talked to Melker much about that, but I think it was a good idea to go with the label of active because it fits the purpose of this shoe, which we're going to dive into a little bit more in depth. But let's stick on aesthetics for just a little bit longer with the 1.0. The 1.0 lacked quite a bit of aesthetic appeal, and I'll kind of break down the features on the 1.0 I wasn't too fond of. First thing was being that the mesh towards the front third of the shoe was very open. I don't know if you can see in the video here, but I can see the sunlight actually coming through the netting on the front third of the shoe. Second thing was they didn't do as well of a job on the one as they did on the two to mask the width of the toe box. When you have a toe box this wide, I think it is a decent idea to try to mask it just a little bit so you can appeal to a little bit larger market. To me, the 2.0 did a much better job of masking that width of the toe box. Second thing, as far as appeal went on the 1.0 that I wasn't too fond of, was the look and honestly the function of the lacing system. The lacing system just kind of looked like it was a little bit more randomly placed on top of the shoe, and the way that it was designed, it didn't have as much capability to secure the shoe to the actual foot. And to me, that's one of the more important shifts that they made from the 1.0 to the Hallux Active. From an aesthetic perspective, the lacing system definitely looks more athletic and robust. Another discrepancy between the look of the 1.0 and the Hallux Active, you have this nice kind of effective as far as a functional standpoint, but very nice looking, a little bit more rubberized kind of look to this protective layer at the heel, which is actually super effective for slipping the shoes on and off if you're going to do that. You know, nice little pull with one foot off of the foot after a long gym session. If we were to look at the sole of the 1.0 in comparison to the Active, I think it's absolutely identical. I mean, I'm scanning it over right now, and I don't really see any type of discrepancy in the pattern, the sidewall, anything like that, it looks exactly identical to the 1.0, which leads me to the next kind of chapter within this review. And that is going to be the sole of the shoe, which is very unique to Wyde. They offer a little bit more stack height. With that stack height, you have a little bit more cushion. With a little bit more cushion gives you a much more pleasant feel for being on harsher surfaces throughout a long period of time. This is something that I think Wyde has continuously done extremely well on, is providing a sole that is flexible and pliable enough to allow the foot to function naturally, but it does give just enough kind of plushness and comfort to the bottom of the foot. And with that sole being exactly the same as on the 1.0, the tread pattern and the lug pattern is exactly the same. Not an overly grippy shoe. I wouldn't necessarily call it super grippy. It does have a nice amount of tackiness on the gym floor. If you're, in the typical gym where they have that little bit of rubberization like I've got underneath me now, it does have a nice amount of bite to that type of surface. Not exactly a shoe that I would do a lot of high intensity cutting drills in. I don't think it would have the most amount of lateral grip if the foot plants and has a tendency to slide. And with activities, this is also a shoe that I would probably not do a ton of running in. I can see maybe running back and forth to stations during maybe more of a circuit workout, which I think this would be more than fine with. Not exactly a distance running shoe, and I don't think I would actually use this for sprinting type of activities either. This is definitely a shoe that I tend to gravitate towards more for that solid, little bit more static type of strength training and gym work. The width of the toe box does allow the toes to spread and splay and grip the ground like we all want to and in the minimalist world. However, when you get into a toe box that is this wide and you are performing a lot of lateral movements where the foot has to plant, then you I tend to have just a little bit of sliding of the toes within the toe box. And this is very specific for dynamic plyometric type of movements where I'm planning, I'm having to cut, push, and pivot to a new direction. My foot is a little bit more low volume. It doesn't take up quite as much space in the top end of the shoe, which will allow my toes to kind of move ever so slightly throughout the cabin of the toe box of the shoe. So for more static movements, planted movements, maybe even some jump rope where you're a little bit more in place, this shoe does really well in that regard. Of course, their sole is always going to be that zero drop. It's going to have zero toe spring, which is that upward tilt that you would see on most conventional footwear. It's going to be non-supportive into the arch of the foot, but it does give a nice little bit of cushion to the arch during pronation type of activities. I really like the material that they went with in contrast to the 1.0. It's a mesh material. It does allow air to flow in and out quite nicely. I've worn this shoe with and without socks, and I don't find that my feet get overly sweaty wearing them without socks. Also think they did a great job of the logo placement, so it's not overly abundant. You do have one logo on either side and then just the typical tongue logo here, and that's pretty much it aside from the patternized wide little W around the edge of the sole. The only other shoe from an aesthetic perspective that I think would come close to even looking like this would be the ATG Barefoot shoe from Knees Over Toes guy, but this shoe has definitely separated itself from any other minimal style shoe, or any shoe for that matter. This shoe looks good in the gym, going out to the store. A little bit nicer golf shorts on today, and to me these shoes look really good with what I've got on, and they also look really good with a little bit more of a casual gym type of fit as well. Something I do want to talk about is the sizing aspect of this shoe, and it does have a little bit more to do with comfort just because of how the shoe has fit me. Now, they sent me the same exact size in the Nova as they did in the Hallux Active, which is a 43. Typically, I wear a men's 10.5. The Nova in a 43 fits me perfectly. It has just a little bit more room in the end of the toe box to what it's like enough room where you want it because you don't want your toe hitting the end of the shoe. Now, in this shoe, the Hallux Active, I did notice that it fits my foot a little bit shorter. So I have noticed that my big toe does hit the end of the shoe a little bit more often. I don't notice it just a ton, but when I do first put the shoe on, it's a little bit more noticeable just because my toe is getting used to the environment. That noticeability tends to decrease just a little bit as the day goes on, but they do run a little bit smaller. And honestly, if they were to send me another pair of these, I would probably go with the 44 in the active instead of the 43, but I would stick with the 43 in the Nova. And this shoe does come in a variety of other colorways. I will put those other colorways up on the screen right now. One of my favorite colorways is definitely the blue, the navy type of color. Durability of the active in contrast to the 1.0. I really use the crap out of the 1.0s. If you can't tell, they are extremely dirty. But overall, the durability and composition of the active to me is just even light years ahead of the 1.0, especially with the added materials on the rear, the material change on the main mesh, just overall quality, build quality of this shoe. It seems super, super rugged. I don't see any type of wear in this shoe, and I've had it for a few months now, and like there's literally zero signs of wear. Even on the sole, it's holding up really, really well. Price wise, these are a little bit more budget friendly than the Novas and the Arcus. The Hallux Active, I believe in the US runs somewhere around $160. If you do choose to use my discount code, I would greatly appreciate that. It will provide you an additional 10% off. You can just plug in Barefoot Will, no spaces while you're checking out, and that will automatically apply your 10% discount. Overall, I am very, very much in love with this shoe. I find myself wearing this just because it is easy to get on. It is super comfortable for all day. To me, it looks really, really good. It's compatible with multiple different outfit styles, whatever you want to call it. Honestly, it's just a fun shoe. All right, guys, that's going to be it for the review of the Wyde Hallux Active. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a small, short comment in the comment section below. I would greatly appreciate that. Give this video a thumbs up and be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with any upcoming reviews. I've got a lot in store for you guys. Shoes are coming in the mail almost every single week. So I am trying to keep up with everything that is to come. I appreciate all your support. A little bit of preview. I may have alluded at some point in this video that my wife, I have gotten her a pair of the Wyde Birkenstock Killer sandals, and they are just one size too big. So unfortunately, we're actually going to be mailing those back today in exchange for a smaller size. I'm going to let her wear them for a little while, and then we'll bring that review over to this channel. So be looking out for that within the next month, maybe 2 months. Otherwise, we'll see you guys on the next review.